And it's our last video. I'm gonna start this first off by being messy and a little. No, I'm not. I'm not gonna start with being messy. I'm gonna put that in the middle so I'm dang gonna well. But right here, right now, I'm starting off with the last chapter of Stuart Little heading north. Stuart slept under the canoe that night. He awakened at 4 to find the rain had stopped. The day would break clear. Already the birds were beginning to stir and make bright sounds in the branches overhead. Stuart never let a bird pass without looking to see if it was Margot. At the edge of the town, he found a filling station and stopped to take on some gas. "5, please," said Stuart to the attendant. The man looked at the tiny automobile in amazement. "5 what?" he asked. "$5, said Stuart. But the man shook his head and said he couldn't sell such a small amount of gas. "Why can't you?" demanded Stuart. "You need the money and I need the gas. Why we can't work something out between us?" The filling station man went inside and came back with a medicine dropper. Stuart unscrewed the cap of a tank, and the man put in 5 drops of gasoline. "I've never done anything like this before," he said. "Better look at the oil, too," said Stuart. After everything had been checked and the money had been paid, Stuart climbed in, started the engine, and drove out onto the highway. The sky was growing brighter, and along the river, the mist of morning hung in the early light. The village was still asleep. Stuart's car spurred along smoothly. Stuart felt refreshed and glad to be on the move again. Half a mile out of town, the road forked. One road seemed to go off toward the west. The other road continued north. Stuart drew up to the side of the northbound road and got out to look at the situation over. To his surprise, he discovered there was a man sitting in a ditch, leaning against a signpost. The man wore spurs on his legs. He also wore a heavy leather belt. And Stuart recognized that he must be a repairman from the telephone company. "Good morning," said Stuart in a friendly voice. The repairman raised one hand to his head in a salute. Stuart sat down in the ditch beside him and breathed deeply out of the fresh sweet air. "It's going to be a fine day," he observed. "Yes," agreed the repairman, "a fine day. I'm looking forward to climbing my poles." "I wish you fair skies and a tight grip," said Stuart. "By the way, do you see any birds at the top of your poles?" "Yes, I see birds in great numbers," replied the repairman. "Well, have you ever run across a bird named Margot?" said Stuart. "I'd appreciate if you would drop me a line. Here's my card." "Describe the bird," said the repairman, taking out a pad and pencil. "Brown," said Stuart. "Brown with a streak of yellow on her bosom. Know where she comes from?" asked the man. "She comes from fields once tall with wheats. From pastures deep in fern and thistle. She comes from valleys in Middle Street, and she loves to whistle." The repairman wrote it all down briefly. Fields, wheats, pastures, ferns, and thistles. Valleys and Meadow Street. Enjoy whistling. Then he put the pad back in his pocket and tucked Stuart's card away in his wallet. "I'll keep my eyes open," he promised. Stuart thanked him. They sat for a while in silence. Then the man spoke. "What direction are you headed?" he asked. "North," said Stuart. "North is nice," said the repairman. "I always enjoy going north. Of course, southwest is a fine direction, too." "Yes, I suppose it is," said Stuart thoughtfully. "And there's east," continued the repairman. I once had an interesting experience on an easterly course. Do you want to tell me about it?" "No, thanks," said Stuart. The repairman seemed disappointed, but he kept right on talking. "There's something about north," he said. "Something that set it apart from other directions. A person who's headed north is not making any mistakes, in my opinion." "That's the way I look at it," said Stuart. "I rather expect that from now on I should be traveling north until the end of my days. Worse things than that could happen to a person," said the repairman. "Yes, I know," answered Stuart. "Following a broken telephone line north, I have come upon some wonderful places," concerning the repairman. "Swamps where cedars grow, turtles wait on logs, but not for anything in particular. Fields bordered by crooked fences, broken by years of standing still. Orchards so old they were forgotten where the farmhouse is. In the north, I've been eating my lunch in pastures ring with ferns and germolines, all under fair skies with the wind blowing. My business has taken me into spruce woods on winter nights where the snow lay deep and soft, a perfect place for carnivore rabbits. I have sat at peace on the freight platforms of railroad junctions in the north, and in warm hours and with the warm smells. I know fresh lakes in the north, understarted respect by fish and hawk, and of course by the telephone company, which has to follow its nose. I know all these places well. They are a long way from here. Don't forget that. And a person who's looking for something doesn't travel very fast." "That's perfectly true," said Stuart. "Well, I guess I better be going. Thank you for your friendly remarks." "Not at all," said the repairman. "I hope you find that bird." Stuart rose from the dish, climbed into his car, and started up the road that led toward the north. The sun was just coming up the hill over the hills on his right. As he peered ahead into the great land that stretched before him, the way seemed long, but the sky was bright, and he somehow felt he was headed in the right direction. But he not. He headed north. The bird went east, so they're not even going in the right direction. So whatever. So Stuart then left his family. Like, are they looking for him? Like, come on. Squeeze, you overdoing it. Okay, next book. No, not next book. So, I'm on YouTube. This is brought to you by the drama channels of YouTube. Yep, it's brought to you by them. So, they posted that Carmen and Nick would probably do a video together. And, of course, the fans don't know if... We, the fans, we don't know if we here for it or if we not here for it. So, let me just say that if Nick decided to do a video with Carmen, I myself feel like the fans, would be here for it. Because if y'all remember, Nick just did a video with Ari. And me, myself, personally, I never thought that she would do a video with Ari. Due to the simple fact that they had a discussion. Like, Ari and Nick's situation is different from Nick and Carmen's situation. If you ask me, if she could forgive Ari, then she could go ahead and forgive Carmen because first of all, we know Carmen and we know that Carmen isn't a person who likes confrontation. So just think of it as she didn't tell you not because she was trying to keep shit from you, but because she didn't like confrontation. She don't like when people get loud. Even though it seemed like, her nigga always said it, it don't fucking matter. The point of the matter is she don't like confrontation. So that's probably why she didn't tell you, Nick. And I understand the shoot blew up on her because she was responding and King wasn't responding. So just chalk it up as that. Forgive each other and move on. Y'all been friends for too long. I feel like if it wasn't underlying little shit going on between y'all friendship, like if it wasn't little shit, like if y'all wasn't feeling like, ooh, y'all wasn't giving each other enough attention and y'all did a lot more talking, if y'all truthfully want to know, y'all can make a 4-video series real quick where y'all come in the room, y'all have a meeting, y'all have a sit down. That first video, y'all could just do a lot of yelling at each other. Like, oh my God, and I felt this way, and woo, I felt this way. But then that second video, y'all gotta sit down and y'all gotta listen to each other. Y'all gotta really listen to each other instead of just talking and trying to overtalk to each other. Instead of just trying to get your point across, hit the other person's point, and then y'all can move on from there. Because, like I said, you and Ari have made up, and I myself personally did not see you and Ari becoming friends again. Because, first of all, it wasn't like y'all was not friends due to something you did or said. She felt some type of way about how her mother reacted to a situation that y'all was included in. So, on to my next book, the last book. It's called The Little Lame Prince. It is by Dana Marie Morlock Cock. I don't even know. I might not be saying the last name right. It's CRIK. So I might not be saying that right. I'm not going to be able to read the whole first chapter. I already know it. I just peeped it. Okay. Chapter 1. No name? Yes, he was the most beautiful prince that ever was born. Of course, being the prince, people said this, but it was true besides. When he looked at the candle, his eyes had an expression of earnest inquiry, quite startling in a newborn baby. His nose, there was not much of a certainty, but what there was seemed a aquiline shape. His complexion was a charming, healthy purple. He was round and fat, straight-limbed and long. In fact, a splendid baby. Everyone was exceedingly proud of him, especially his father and mother, the king and king of Northumberland, who had waited for him during their happy reign of 10 years, now made happier than ever to themselves and their subjects by the appearance of their son and heir. The only person who was not quite happy was the king's brother, the heir presumptuous, who would have been king one day had the baby not been born. But as his majesty was very kind to him and even rather sorry for him, and so much that the queen requested he gave him a dukedom almost as big as the country. The crown prince, as he was called, tried to seem pleased also, and let us hope he succeeded. The prince christening was to be a grand affair. According to the custom of the country, there was chosen for him 24 godfathers and godmothers who each had to give him a name and promised to do their utmost for him. When he came of age, he himself had to choose the name, and the godfather or godmother that he liked the best for the rest of his days. Meanwhile, all was rejoicing. Subscriptions were made among the rich to give pleasure to the poor. Dinners in town halls for the working men, tea parties in the streets for their wives, and milk and bun fests for the children in the schoolhouse. For Northlands, though I cannot point it out on any map or read of it in any history, was, I believe, much like our own or many of another country. As for the palace, which was no different from any other palace, it was clean, turned out the windows, as people say, with the preparations going on. The only quiet place in it was the room which, though the prince was 6 years old, his mother, the queen, had never quitted. Nobody said she was ill, however, it had been so inconvenient. And as she said nothing about it herself, but lay pale and placid, giving no trouble to anyone, no one thought much about her. Wow. All the world was served in admiring the baby. The christening day came at last, and it was lovely as the prince himself. All the people in the palace were lovely too, thought themselves so, and the enchantment new clothes with the queen, who thought of everyone had taken care of them, from the ladies in waiting down to the poor little kitchen maid who looked at herself in her pink cotton gown and thought doubtless that there was never was such a pretty girl as she. By 6 in the morning, all the royal household had dressed itself in its pretty best, and then the little prince was dressed in his best. His magnificent christening robe, which preceded his royal highness, did not like it all, but kicked and screamed like any common baby. When he had calmed down a little, they carried him to be looked at by the queen, his mother, who through her royal robes had been brought and laid upon the bed, whereas, as everyone well knew, quite unable to rise and put them on. She admired her baby very much, kissed and blessed him, and lay looking at him, as she did for hours sometimes, when he was placed beside her fast asleep. Then she gave him up with a gentle smile, and saying she hoped he would be very good, that it would be a very nice christening, and all the guests would enjoy themselves. Turned peacefully over in her bed, saying nothing more to anyone. She was a very uncomplaining person, the queen, and her name was Doris. So we're gonna leave it out with the queen name, because I do wanna. I know I'm gonna have to do another video, but that's gonna have to be later, because I gotta get my kid up. He gotta get him dressed. So on to the rest of the Sisterhood of Blackberry Corner. The second town meeting at the Brotherhood of Good Faith Hall had the people that the first one did. But the ones who came still felt the aftershock of a small life nearly 3 months ago. Several people from Piney Grove returned, along with Reverend Duncan and his wife, and 5 of Nass's large brothers. Thorwald and Horace Dean were in attendance this time, as were Trent Mayers, Bailey Dale, Jess Seneca, and only one of the Bell sisters. Ruby Pearl Yancey surprised them all by being there again. She sat quietly down near the door. 1 or 2 faces that Bonnie didn't recognize had come, and of course, all the ladies from the Blessed Harvest. Pine stood before them. About a week ago, he began. A young girl lived in Manstone was reported to us by her husband. Pine stuffed his hands in his pockets. The girl's husband claimed she had a baby about 4 months ago. The crowd was rapid. This husband, Pine went on, he one of those now to do well kind of fellas. Y'all know what I mean. He admit that he drinks some and tomcat on the girl. Get to the point, Lorraine. Yeah, y'all know who killed this child or not. Pine was unstirred by the emotion in the world. This girl, he calmly proceeded, told her husband that she took the baby to her grandmama, somewhere in Georgia. But this fella come to think that maybe this girl did harm to the child. Say she never visited the grandmama, never spoke about the child, and never say she was acting real strange, walking around all hours of the night, mumbling to herself and such. But Mo, he went to see the grandmama, and the grandmama didn't know nothing about no child. Dang. Bonnie could feel her heart pounding. She had Nancy's hand on one side and Thor's on the other hand. Was it this girl who drowned her baby or not? Horse called. She in jail? Tilly said. Husband said that the girl ran off. Pine said. Collective groan sounded through the room. We can't find her to ask any questions. Husband says she could be anywhere from here to Michigan. You gotta be kidding, Larissa said in disgust. Pointing his Pine said, jangling his kids. She was our biggest lead and now she's gone. What is wrong with you people? Olive hollered. Must take stupid pills, just Senator put in. So what you trying to say, Tilly stood up, is that we may never find out who killed this poor child. Pine looked at his hands folded in front of him. The case stay open, he said. Another groan ripped across the room. I'm afraid that ain't enough, Tilly said simply. And the onlyest reason you called us here was to tell us some girl and her grandma is 'cause y'all ain't got a damn thing? She was a promising lead, Pine argued. Promising my ass, Tilly spat. Could be that woman took her child and gone. Or maybe she wanted to get away from that trifling man, Delphine yelled. Some of them not their head in agreement. We ladies did what y'all asked, Tilly went on. We stayed out of it and left things in the hands of the law. But now it's time for the community to get involved. You need to keep leaving things in the hand of the law, Pine insisted. An innocent child is dead, Taylor charged. And y'all ain't got nothing. Not a damn thing. Sound like Tilly about to step up on her soapbox, Story whispered to Bonnie. I think we should all check Brown, the three sisters Tilly yelled. We should find out who been pregnant and who ain't got no baby no more. Then we gotta show this woman just what it feel like to be left to die. Tilly's remark brought the room to his feet in support. But Bonnie couldn't share in the fervor of the others. She acknowledged it was deeply unsettling that a child killer was out there. And it was even more disturbing to know that it could be someone who lived in the three sisters. Yet she had to wonder just what would drive a woman to kill her own infant. And if caught, she would be thrown in jail for the rest of her life, or worse, put to death. Bonnie looked at Tyler Monroe, who once again had stepped into the spotlight. She knew that this was where Tyler was happiest, even though she was rounding the town to lynch some woman who might have been desperate enough for just plain crazy out her mind. Ladies and gentlemen, Tyler yelled, we ought to start a committee, and we should canvass the town, and I mean all area, for Shano, Holly, and as far as Tilly. Bonnie glanced at the feed. She could see the exhaustion in the woman's body. The enormity of raising 6 children was present, even in the way she sat, slumped back in her chair. Tally ranted and Daphne kept her eyes on her 4-year-old boy, Leobot, who sat on the seat next to her. On her other side was her 8-year-old girl, Riri. Delphine looked up from her lap and caught Bonnie's eyes. Again, the shame of her circumstance was evident. The ladies of the Blessed Heart and the Brethren of Good Faith should get out there, Tilly went on, and we should check the hospital for any girl that might have given birth in the last few months. We need to find out where these babies are and where they ain't. That'll stir things up. Now, never know where bad apples might fall from them trees. Bonnie suddenly thought of the woman in the big bag and her desperation. A better mother's best desperation. Certainly Bonnie could never support a person who drowned her child. But somehow she felt the woman shouldn't be hunted down and slandered. Bonnie moved to the edge of her chair. In the middle of Ty's rant, Bonnie stood up. Ty looked at her curiously, but kept on talking. Even Nance appeared a little taken aback when he saw us with his wife waiting for the crowd to quiet. Bonnie clutched her hands together to stop them from shaking. She had no idea what she'd say, and when she started, her voice barely rose above a whisper. I agree with Tyler, she began. I mean, I ain't got no excuse for what happened. Damn right, Tellier. Whoever did this was wrong. Lord knows she was wrong, Bonnie glanced through a sea of distressed faces. But what if she felt like she ain't had no choice? A thoughtful silence fell over the woman. What's that supposed to mean? Laretha yelled out. What the hell you saying, Bonnie Wilder? Tally asked. Let Bonnie finish, Miss Idle put in. I mean, that this woman who did this, Bonnie went on, maybe she was in some awful pain. I don't give a damn about how much pain she in, Tyler yelled. I'm the mother of 4, and I can tell you that ain't no easy thing raising kids. And with all due respect, Bonnie, you ain't got no children, so you might not understand. Bonnie felt her heart sink, but she held her head up. Bonnie don't need to be no mama to have pity on some crazy woman, Thora yelled out. Pity? Didi said incredibly. You ain't got no kids neither, Thoradine. So maybe you and Bonnie should. Ah, now Tilly, Pine put in. Look at here, Tilly went on. If you don't have no babies, then you don't know. Sometimes you want to wring they damn necks, Tilly argued. But hell, if I would harm my children for any reason. But you have Carl to help you, Bonnie said. Plus family, neighbors, and friends. Maybe this woman felt she ain't had nobody. No choice. Bonnie took a deep breath. All I'm saying, she went on, is that instead of trying to find a person to lynch her up, maybe we need to get her help for her. You trying to defend somebody that gonna kill it, that done killed the child, Bonnie Waller? Lorene said, you know I ain't. Bonnie was beginning to wish she never stood up in the first place. Still, her conviction gave her strength. But maybe folks need a place to bring their baby when things get bad. Some safe place so that they won't feel like sticking them in the creek is the answer. Like where, Tilly asked. Where mama supposed to bring a child she don't want? I don't know, Bonnie stuttered. Maybe the county home. A mutter of disdain ripped through the crowd. She turned to her husband's support, but Nas looked like he wished she would stop talking. Like he wished she would sit her ass down. You seen the kids from the orphanage, Tilly yelled. They come to our Christmas party 2 years in a row and act like a pack of wild animals. Well, take the child to the church to a neighbor, Bonnie said helplessly. Hell, bring the babies to me. What, Tilly said in shock? Bonnie Nass whispered. Better than drown them in a creek. Sit on down, girl, Thora said, pulling her arm. Forget these people. Bonnie was sharp on her own words. She hadn't meant to go this far. You done lost your ever-loving man, Bonnie Wilder, Teddy called out. No lie, Lorthin put in. Ned stood beside his wife. The room was silent. Ned's Wilder rarely spoke out. When he did, he always did on. Y'all know what Bonnie trying to say, he started. And y'all know her to be merciful and kind. So don't sit there putting evil words in her mouth. I know everybody excited and upset, and we ought to be. But there ain't no reason to turn on each other, because somebody might see the situation different than you. We all need to do what we can in our own way. When he sat down and tugged his wife's arm again, she did the same. Thora squeezed Bonnie's hand and gave her a sympathetic smile. Look, folks, Pine called over the crowd. Ain't nothing changed. Let me know if you see or hear anything. The crowd began to break up, though many gravitated to the corner where Tally was holding court. Bonnie and Thora quickly headed toward the door. Some avoided Bonnie's eyes, and a few shook her head but quickly left. Just a dirty, stinking crime to disagree in this town, Thora said. How in the world do you do it, Bonnie asked her. Like I get 2 cents about what these folks think of me, Thora sucked her teeth. I ain't studying about even one. Thora pushed Bonnie's shoulder like she was proud. You the only true and decent soul in this whole room, please. Everybody else set up in church like they doing something. Go out and collect clothes and stuff. Talk about Jesus this and Jesus that. I like what you said, Thora went on. You crazy as hell, but your heart is in the right place. Thora gave Bonnie a quick hug. Come on, Sister Sarah. Let's wait in the car. I need me a cigarette. You go on, Bonnie said. I'm gonna fan Nora Nass first. The truth was, Bonnie now regretted speaking up. Though no one was outright angry, she sensed there had been a shift in the room against her. It was like she had stepped out of her place. Bonnie had always been respected and well liked in the community. And unlike Thora, she didn't have any constitution to withstand the town's ill will. She dressed to Nass, who was standing with Pine and Horse, then slipped on her sweater and was about to leave the hall. Bonnie? She turned to see Ruby Pearl Yancey standing behind her. Ruby Pearl was a young woman, no older than 28, who had lost her husband and daughter in a car accident years before. Ruby Pearl was severely hurt herself, and her once pretty face still showed scars of the accident. She now had a slow eye, and her right cheek drooped. Ruby Pearl wore a handkerchief, obscenely to keep the sun away, but Bonnie knew that the scarf was more to cover the disfigurement. Even worse than the scars was the guilt that the woman carried with her. Ruby Pearl had been driving the car that killed her family. Good to see you, honey, Bonnie said. Ruby Pearl smiled tugged against the taut skin on the side of her face. Every Sunday in church, I always mean to stop and say, hey. But you know me, Bonnie. I like to get right out of there. If I didn't have a husband that had to talk about hunting and fishing all the time, I would live a lot sooner myself, Bonnie smiled. Ruby Pearl tilted her face down when she spoke. I heard what you said in there. And you weren't just talking to the wind. Thank you, dear, Bonnie whispered. Such sins, Ruby Pearl said, shaking her head. Folks throwing away precious babies. And here me and you would do just about anything to have one. Bonnie was taken aback about Ruby Pearl's candor. It ain't no secret, Ruby Pearl said gently. My good friend Letty, she live up in Hensel. She try to have one too. Sometimes it just don't happen that way. Bonnie nodded. Ruby Pearl went on. I want you to know that I heard every word you said, and I agree. She moved closer. But you know as good as me, the quickest wheel gets the grease. Ain't that the truth, Bonnie laughed. She took Ruby Pearl's hand. Bonnie realized that it was easy to miss a woman in crowds like this, but Ruby Pearl tended to fade into the furniture. Why don't you come and visit us sometime, Bonnie said. We'll have us some lemonade. I'll do that. Bonnie knew she wanted. The most Ruby Pearl Yancey did was go to work at the tackle shop, go to church, and then go home. It had been hard to accept, Bonnie thought, to be young, pretty, wife, and mama one day, then along and disfigurement the next. Bonnie walked outside and watched Ruby Pearl get into her car. She asked the woman how the woman had the courage to drive after all that had happened. Bonnie peeked in the hall again. Nancy and Hurst was standing with Pan and our Lounge brothers. They had clearly moved on to another topic because the men were examining Baker's new hunting rifle. Tilly Monroe was still in the middle of an animated group. Bonnie took a long breath. As much noise as there was today, and as silly as her remarks were, she knew that, like most everything else in the Three Sisters, people would be in the uproar for a few days, and then life would go on. Okay, that was part 1. 3 chapters for part 1. I was actually pretty good. Chapter 4 for part 2, but we ain't gonna do that now. Now, you remember, leave a like, leave a comment. Don't mess that subscribe button. Because when we finally get there, we gonna be like subscribe, or if not, we gonna sneak into your house, steal all your fucking furniture, and your remote, and your wallet, and your credit card. So you have to come look for us, and leave your TV on to Quiz Plus Elijah on endless loop, because we have hella videos for you to watch. Get it.